So what I want to talk about in this video is my experiences of being an academic and being a YouTuber at the same time. I've learned to embrace this quite readily, as you've seen the YouTube thing for the last 3.5 years. And it has been a journey, and I want to talk about this because I think this is helpful for other people that are thinking of doing the YouTube thing or some sort of social media thing if they're an academic. So if you don't know me, I am a professor. I'm Professor Dave Massack. I'm an associate professor of innovation strategy and entrepreneurship. And I created this whole reciprocity project to give back as much as I possibly can. There were so many people that helped me out that I want to pay the favor forward to help you out. So, the long story of how this actually happened, or the short story of how this actually happened, I created this sort of sharing economy editing platform. By the way, please don't go buy credits. It does help out so much. But at the same time, I built this thing and I put it out on the internet and absolutely nothing happened. That's what the reciprocity project was, is that there was no traffic going to it. And it was just really crickets in terms of the whole idea behind it. And so I started doing YouTube videos in terms of explainers at the beginning of what this thing was about. And you could see that in terms of who I was. But then over time, I sort of resonated with certain things and certain topics in terms of talking about, academic life and what research is and, helping graduate students and, personal, leadership and all sort of things like that. And what has happened to me is sort of a transformation of sorts in terms of how I feel about social media. So at the beginning of this whole journey, I was really afraid of things. I was being held back by a lot of stuff in terms of my mind of thinking about what other people are going to say, what are they going to do. And I think that this is really... this is true of almost all academics because we are afraid of what other people are going to say. But the other thing I think too is that it's not only true of academics, but it's true of everybody. We're all sort of holding ourselves back in terms of thinking of, if I do this thing, I'm going to look really silly, I'm going to look weird, and what are people going to say about who I am? And it's true. People are probably going to say different things about you, and they're probably going to gossip behind your back and say, that this is kind of a weird thing. And gossip is not necessarily a bad thing, right? Gossip is other people trying to figure out, okay, what does this mean in terms of social norms? Is that the right thing or is that the wrong thing for me personally to do by gossiping, by sort of getting other people's ideas about this? So, it does happen and it is a weird phenomenon. But for me, in terms of the transition that I've gone through, and maybe you're going to go through the same thing if you're an academic and you're thinking about this, is, realization of how powerful and how amazing of a tool this really is that we have access to probably one of the best ways of distributing ideas that we've ever had. Social media in terms of building a connection to other people is incredibly powerful because people watch these videos and they sort of resonate with these different things. But and then people almost feel like you're friends in a weird way, right? And I feel that way when I listen to different podcasts or different social media people that are out there that have been doing this and that are genuine, not slimy, sleazy people, is that I feel like, I really know who those people are. And, this is something that is a really weird transformation for me to go through. And the feelings that I am going through is realizing that to a lot of degrees, what is going on is building a relationship, and building this relationship is an interesting thing because here I am, I'm talking to a computer screen. I've got my bed in the back, the guest bedroom. I'm in the guest bedroom, and here you are following along and sort of resonating with what I'm saying. But this sort of phenomenon that we're going through in terms of social media and building relationships, I think is a very powerful thing in this world that we're forgetting and neglecting to actually take advantage of. So yes, I do encourage you to do this in terms of sharing your ideas. But the bigger thing that you're going to experience is this sort of transformation of who you are as an individual and as a person. And I went through this in graduate school of, and this is, I tell a lot of people, it's the biggest transformation you're going to go through in graduate school is not about the education. And it's the same as this. It's not about me sort of learning how to do all this kind of stuff, but it's you changing as an individual and changing who you feel or what you feel and how you think. And that transformation is going to be very powerful for you, because you learn to realize that it really doesn't matter. And, the world out there, this sort of weird world, nobody really cares about this kind of stuff. It is not necessarily that big of a thing, and you are sort of overthinking this, and you're thinking that if I do this, then, I'm going to lose my job. What are people going to say? They're going to say that you're wasting your time. This is totally irrelevant. Nobody cares about this thing. It is, there's all sorts of fears and sort of thoughts that you go through. And it's true. A lot of that stuff is very true, but at the same time, you learn how to do things for yourself. And you learn that this process of what you're doing is really, it's a personal journey. It has nothing to do with what other people are doing and what other people are saying. So it's about leadership in who you are. I think that's the important thing is, we think of leaders in terms of, leading other people, but we forget that there is a sort of component of leadership and sort of understanding who you are and making sense of what you're about inside your own brain, right? We've got these sort of thoughts and feelings that are in our brain that we're constantly going on, a sort of thinker in your brain, sort of controlling what's going on with your body, and that thinker often doesn't have a lot of leadership. And so learning how to explicitly talk about ideas and sharing different things, it is a really kind of interesting phenomenon that I've experienced, and maybe you're going to experience the same thing if you do this, is that you learn that what you're doing is incredibly important for yourself. And you really go through a lot of thoughtfulness of what that means. And you learn to not worry so much about what other people are thinking and what they're doing, and just do it for the sake of you doing that. And now I'm never going to sort of lose this feeling of people think that I'm being silly, or I'm insecure and I've got these anxieties. I'm never going to lose those things. But what I've learned is that this has been very therapeutic for me to get over some of those things. And when you see me in public, and many of you will see me in public at one point, I'm going to be that shy, quiet person that I always am. But when I'm here talking to you, I can share about who I am and what I'm about, and you get to understand who I am more so than what I can actually share in public because of all of these anxieties and how I feel and what I'm about. So as you go about of thinking about this, know that it's absolutely one of the most powerful things that social media, YouTube, being open on these social platforms is absolutely powerful. But it's powerful in the sense that nobody cares about your research. Nobody cares about this sort of thing that you're working on. What they care about is actually you and understanding who you are, because then they get to figure out who they are in return. And this personal connection of trying to figure this out, and you trying to figure this out, and being relatable, quote unquote relatable and authentic, that is what this is about. So as you go and do your YouTube thing or your social media thing, whatever that looks like, if you're an academic, you're a researcher, graduate student, and you're thinking of doing this, just know that what you think is important in your mind is not important to them. What is important is the relationships that you build and people getting to know who you are deep down inside there. That is the most important thing in terms of what we do. And if we can share this story, if we can get this out and let other people know that, we're just not robotic sort of idea creating things that we do in universities and institutions, but we're normal people with relationships, ideas, flaws, mistakes, all of those kind of things, then we're getting our stories across. And I think that's more important than anything. So get out there. And if you're thinking of becoming a YouTube academic, just enjoy it. Be who you are. Share your stories. Don't worry about what other people are going to think and what other people are going to say.